Yep. Sorry about that. I forgot to push the record button. So here we go. But thank you. I'm so glad that you're here tonight. Listen, I read your bio so people know about you. They know who you are. They know what you stand for. They know where you've been and they know where you're going. But tell us something about you that we don't know and we really should know.
Oh man. Um I actually am the grandson of a bishop. My grandfather was a pastor in the church in Brooklyn. Ministry has been in my family on both sides, my mother and my father. So I couldn't run from it, even though I tried at one point. Couldn't
Wow.
run from it. But one thing about me is that I am a firm believer that God is always involved in our current situations. Oftentimes, people are, where's God? Where's God? I'm a firm believer that you can find God in any situation if you look hard enough. So that's one thing about me. I'm always, just optimistic and always wanting to see the what God is doing next in people's lives. So.
Well, that's good. I guess that's why you work with children, young people, I should say. I don't want to call them children because I think they're just young people.
Yes,
And
yes,
that's who they are, and if we treat them like young people, they grow up to be good adults.
that's very true. Very true.
So tell me, I'm curious. I mean, I'm going to talk about some other things, but I was curious because in your bio, you talked about working for the Department of Education and the juvenile penal system. Talk a little bit about that, because I just talked about, I mentioned the children and so on and so forth, but talk about that and how that has, impacted your life, because understanding that you come from a family of preachers and you couldn't avoid it even if you wanted to.
Yeah.
How did the children become a part of that ministry focus?
So the funny thing is, I did not want to work with children. um, that wasn't something I wanted to do. I
Mm-hmm.
was, a young man looking for a job and said, hey, let me try the Department of Education.
Mm-hmm.
Once getting there, found out that was something I was gifted for. Um, Working with the children in the schools, you see different backgrounds. You see where they come from. You see different uh, how they respond to different things. You
Mm-hmm.
everyone from a single family home to a two-parent home to someone being raised by another family member, and that dynamic is different. What I noticed though in the schools where there weren't enough men that looked like us.
Mm.
There weren't enough.
Mm.
The only male, especially male of color, working in school, predominantly minority
Mm-hmm.
school, the only male of color that they would deal with is either the security guards, possibly the gym teachers, but they didn't really have too many male influences in the school. Most of the teachers were female, and maybe not. They didn't look like us, so there it was hard for them to relate. So being in the school system, I started a program for young men, a young men's program where the young men could get together, come together, talk about things that they needed to know. From as little as how do I tie a tie?
Mm.
How do I speak to another female? Things of that nature that they were not necessarily being taught. I started that program and then transitioned out and then went into the juvenile system, which was a totally different um, partner or a totally different environment. You're on the other side of
Right.
young people who are in prison for some serious, serious crimes. Um, I got to work overnight, so I got to have a little bit of a different conversation with them. I got to see them in their weak moment, in their moment of
Right.
messed up.
When
I,
nobody's really, they don't have to put on a show for anybody because everybody sleep.
exactly, exactly. They didn't have to be the tough guy. They
Right.
didn't, have to. They didn't have to do that, and you get to see them in a different light. Not saying, and some of them had no other choice. They didn't have.
Mm.
They didn't have a father. They didn't have a male that was there saying, "Hey, don't do it this way. Do it this way." When we're telling them, "Hey, it's time to go to bed," they didn't have someone telling them, "Hey, go be home at a certain time." So you're dealing with children that had no structure. And
Mm.
whenever you have or dealing with children that have no structure, they go wild
Right.
and of course things happen. So taking both of those experiences, taking both of those things, we at our church, we try to make sure that our young people, number one, know that it's important that they have a voice, because we need to hear what our young people are listening to. We need to know what they're saying. My son came to me, one day and said, "Oh my God, this person is punched." And I was like, "What? They got hit?" He was like, "No, that means ugly now." So, the language has changed. Things have.
Yes.
So we need to, these two experiences have taught me the importance of listening to young people and also trying to develop structure, systems,
Mm.
different things to keep them going the right way.
I like that. You don't know this about me, but I'll share this with you. I used to work in child welfare as well.
Oh, wow.
In a couple of instances, I worked at a GED program, and I was actually their job developer.
Wow.
Which was interesting. And then I worked in foster care.
Mm.
And I was actually I recruited foster parents initially. And then I became their director of public relations. So I became the voice to the voiceless.
Wow.
So I would talk with them, but also, with the staffing and everything else, but all the public relations for this very, very large foster care agency was my responsibility. And one of the things and I'm glad that you mentioned programming, because, what kinds of things are necessary for people to emerge, if you will, to come out of that cocoon, to be who they were created to be. You really don't know. So you got to try everything. So what I did was I created what I called the all-star motivational session. And what I did was I had individuals that I knew, friends of mine who were successful in their own right, mostly male,
mm-hmm.
come in and talk with the brothers and the sisters, because they were both there, about, I said, I don't want you to do a motivational speech. What I want you to do is I want you to share your life with them.
Mm-hmm.
Give them an opportunity to get to know who you are. And it was amazing. One of my friends came in and he began to speak, and he was the first African-American Black pilot in the New York City Police Department.
Wow.
And the only one for many, many years. And so he talked about what that looks like, what that felt like, even though you're at a level in your career where things are going well, but there were other challenges that he had. But even more than that, what really got to me is that I didn't know this. Now, he was a client when I was doing financial services. He was one of my first clients when I started doing financial services. In fact, I went into the financial services business when he went into the police department.
Wow.
And he said to us that day, he said, "I was adopted. I never knew that." And so his adopted father, was a preacher. So David became very connected with ministry and things like that, but he never became a minister. Mm-hmm. But his life was shadowed under shadowed under the shadow of the Almighty. So he was always in that light. But it was interesting because I had known him then for over 20 years. Wow. And never knew that about him. You see what I'm saying? So I'm saying that to say this: you never know who people are unless you talk to them.
Unless you talk to them.
You can know them, you can talk to them, but unless you do have what you might call those midnight conversations,
yeah,
you don't know these things. And so, go ahead. I'm sorry. I just wanted to say that, to share that, because you really, when I read that in your bio, hit a nerve with me. So
one of the things you said was amazing. They don't need a motivational speaker; they need to know who you are.
Yeah.
And oftentimes people just want to give motivational speeches. One of the things that maybe I should, one of the things that people don't know about me was that growing up, I was a rebel. I was getting suspended every week, every month. I mean, I was literally getting suspended from school every month. My father was like, "This boy about to go to military school or down south or something, because this is ridiculous. This is crazy." And my parents disciplined me. I just was hard-headed. I was a hard-headed kid. And I remember I grew up in the Bronx. My parents had moved us to upstate New York, predominantly Caucasian school. Mm-hmm. And there was one teacher, one male teacher, my Spanish teacher, who was a mix. He was mixed. And I thought, because he was very young at the time, I was like, "Oh, I'm going to just let him have it." And he pulled me to the side after class. All the other teachers would kick me out, send me to detention, pull me to the side and said, I'm not going to give up on you. And I know you're better than this. That was 20 something years ago. Totally changed me. Totally changed me. First time I had an interaction with a man that looked like me, that didn't say, get out, that didn't say, go to deal with someone else, that said, you're going to deal with me because I'm going to make sure you become who I know you are.
Yeah.
And it totally changed me. And from that point on, when I deal with young people, that's my perspective. No, I'm not. You're not going to get rid of me.
Right. You're not going to scare me off.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm not going to abandon you. Yeah. So you can forget about it. I'm here and I ain't going nowhere. So get used to it. Exactly. When you say that to a young person, to a young male in particular, it means so much to them because they've been successful at running people out of their lives.
Yes.
And so they think, you're just another one of them. So if I put the pressure on you, you're going to leave just like they did.
Yes.
That's why I do what I do, because I'm like a stallion, right? Nobody can break me. And all you got to do is ride me. That's all you got to do. The stallions want to be broken. You just got to ride it. You can't let them buck you. And I'm glad that you said that. It's interesting. You brought another thought to mind. While I was with the GED program, I started another program. It was like a youth leadership development program that I did for the GED program. And we decided that we were going to paint the school. We were literally operating out of a church, and the classroom was in a basement. And so I said, it looks a little drab in here. So we literally painted the walls white. So you got a much more sort of like a larger feeling, if you will. Mm-hmm. And so I got a grant from one of the local non-for-profit organizations that do that. I think Citizens Committee or something like that. And so they came to see what was happening. They sent somebody out to see what we were doing. And I had about 8 or 9 young people working with me. And the young lady who came out, she said, I've never seen young people respond to an adult the way these young people are responding to you. Not ever. She said, I have an organization I'm working with in Brooklyn that I'm going to leave because I'm pregnant, but I think you would be great with them. Mm-hmm. Would you be interested? I said, perhaps. She said, well, I need to tell you that, the woman who runs the program, she's kind of old and she's prejudiced. I said, well, go talk to her. So when I got there and spoke with her, she wasn't old. She was actually my age. She wasn't prejudiced. She just didn't like her. So when I told her what I was going to do, like put together a life development program so that they would have an opportunity to have some life skills conversations. Mm-hmm. She said, I love it. When can you start? I said, well, when you like. She said, how about next week? She took all the documents out and said, hey, we just sign here. She did it. She said, I'll take care of all of that stuff. She did it. And so I went there. And the reason I'm saying this is because they put me in Ardsdale High School, right? Which is in, what part of Brooklyn is that? It's a Hasidic area, but the minorities all went to Ardsdale High School. And they put me in the worst class in the school that nobody wanted to teach. So I was there for 3 hours a month, 3 hours a week in this class. Nobody wanted to teach it because they were unruly. Nobody wanted to do anything. And so I went in and said, listen, I'm not a teacher, but I'm gonna teach you something. I'm gonna teach you how to live life that you'll be proud of. And so we went through this whole process. And one guy, he was a William Daniel III, he had to buck me, he had to buck. So he came up to me, literally, and swung at me.
Wow.
So I was like, okay. I used to study the martial arts, right? And I used to work in a mental institution as well. And so I know how to restrain people without hurting them. So when he swung, I moved back, grabbed his arm, pulled him, had him like this and pulled him down to the ground. Didn't hurt him, didn't touch him, no swings, no that, just pull him down to the ground. And he's like this, and he's kind of caught it. He can't move. And I said, I could really hurt you. I said, but I would never do that because I love you. And there's nothing you can do about it. So I need you to understand, I ain't going nowhere. I'm going to be here for you. And so the class was getting ready to go and get an uproar, but they saw that I wasn't upset. So he was like, wow.
Mm-hmm.
And then they went and got, the principal came in and they said, well, what happened? I said, well, he swung at me. Well, what did you do? I said, I just restrained him.
Mm-hmm.
But did you hit? No, I didn't hit him. I touched him, yeah, because I didn't want him to hit me again. He missed me the first time. I didn't want to give another chance. So he looked, he said, well, we can't do anything. So he couldn't do anything to me because I didn't do anything to the child.
Yeah.
That was one. The class became mine that day. Then I had another instance that happened. Another guy, and so I said, tell you what, I understand, I get it. I said, but you're a man, you're a man's man. I get that. So I tell you what, I'll make a deal with you. If you can do more push-ups than me in 1 minute, you have the class. I'll let you do whatever you want to do. But if I do more than you, I got the class.
Mm-hmm.
That a deal? He said, yeah, you old. I said, all right, let's do it. I could do 100 push-ups in a minute. I knew he wasn't gonna be able to keep up with me. So I said, okay, let's go. So we started, we got head to head. I said, all y'all count, okay? So they send around and we started going. So I'm up at 20, he's kind of pushing out 10. I said, come on, what's the matter? And then I got on 1. I said, come on, man, you gotta keep up with me. And he looked at me, the class was mine. I had them, they were just beautiful kids. They just loved everything. I had them write articles and did different kinds of things talking about their experiences. And reason that that it touched my heart when I read what you wrote and when I'm listening to what you say is that I know what it means to have someone care about you enough to make a difference in your life, to pull you in. Now you had guidance, you had a dad, you had a grandparent, you had a grandmother, you had ministry all around you. And you probably could play instruments even then.
Yeah.
But you still decided that you were going to be a knucklehead.
Yes. Singing on the choir, still a knucklehead. Ushering, still a knucklehead,
That's funny.
Played the musicians, I played the music and was still a knucklehead. It just, trying to prove something. I was the youngest out of my cousins. I was the youngest, so just trying to prove something. Growing up, and especially, it really started happening, especially when I got into middle school when I moved. Growing up in the Bronx, I got jumped.
Really? Where did you grow up at, by the way?
I was uptown in the Bronx, 226.
Okay.
So in middle school, actually I got jumped twice. I got jumped once in elementary school, and then I got jumped again in middle school. And I was acting up then, but when I got upstate, I got jumped again. Maybe my first 2 weeks of being there.
So what did you have, a tag? You had a sign on your back say jump?
I really think I had a tag on my back. I really do. And it was crazy because I was a very churchy kid. I loved going to church. I always wanted to be in church. But when it came to school, I was just a knucklehead.
Right.
And that last jumping, I was just like, this is never going to happen to me again. This is never going to happen to me again. I'm going to get into one fight and make sure everyone sees it so that no one. And what happened was I grew up in middle school being something and someone that I was not. And I struggled through that journey because I was trying to be something, or I was being something that I really wasn't. And it was because of, what had happened to me. I didn't want to go home and tell my father I got jumped. I didn't want to go home and tell my mother I got jumped, or my oldest. I didn't want to do that. I was tired of being the punching bag. But what happened was it made me something I wasn't, especially because I didn't talk about it. And I held that. And oftentimes what I realize is that kids, and I'm okay with it, even with my children, I'm like, you don't have to talk to me, but talk to somebody.
Right.
Because, you need to I didn't want to talk to my parents, not because I knew my parents were going to go to the school. My parents went to war for me and my siblings. You
Mm,
know, I knew that was going to happen, but it just wasn't. I just didn't want to do that, and
mm,
I held it because of whatever was going on, and now wound up being something that I wasn't,
mm.
and it produced bad fruit.
So that's interesting because we're talking about transformation, right?
Hmm.
So it's possible to be transformed into something that you don't want.
Yes.
So you think you're a butterfly, you come out a moth.
Exactly. Exactly. Exactly.
But that's interesting because I think a lot of people. I tell my niece this. I used to tell my niece this all the time when she's growing up. I said, you know why you always get caught doing stuff? I said, you ever notice that when you and your friends get together and y'all do stuff, you always want to get caught?
Mm.
You don't fit in.
Yes.
You stand out like a sore thumb because you're trying to fit in someplace that you should not be.
Hmm.
And consequently, you get caught all the time. I said, is there something wrong with you just being who you are?
Mm.
Just be who you are. If they don't understand it, then introduce them to this person. Because this is a great, I know the real you, because when you're with me, you be you. But when you're with them, you try to be, you can't be them. They're all taken already. They already got their lives. They got their slots. You can't fit into their slot. You got to fill in your own slot. And it was interesting because, I don't think my niece will fully understand what I said until she's firmly into her adulthood,
Hmm.
because sometimes it just doesn't click. But the seeds have been planted, and so consequently, some people get caught up in that life trying to fit in that they literally go so far off that they become something that they're not.
Hmm.
And trying to get back to who you are is a longer process, particularly for young people. You know what I'm saying? Because you grow up and you don't know, you haven't had a chance to meet that other person in reality. You kind of created this facade of a person and you're trying to fill that role, doing all kind of stupid stuff, trying to make yourself fit into that slot. And you never did. You're a perfect example. You didn't do it. You couldn't. You tried and you know what, but I still had to pull from the church.
Yeah. And it was, it's people need to understand that being who you are is very liberating. I was the kid that did not want to play manhunt. My cousins, they still laugh at me. I wanted to play church growing up. I would put on my choir robe and I wanted to be a preacher, preaching to the teddy bears. And I was that kind of kid, really was. But it wasn't until I felt like I wasn't fitting in. I was very different and I didn't want to be different. Because to us, which is is not accurate, but being different isn't a good thing.
Right.
Being different is
Right.
is being lonely, and I don't want to be by myself. I want to have my friends, so
Right.
I got to be like them. So what happens is you become, or myself, started acting like them and started getting into trouble like them and started doing things like them, and it never felt okay because that wasn't who I was. Like I said, my father, we were talking maybe a month ago, and he said, this didn't make no sense. He said, this boy's supposed to be a child of God. And he's acting like this. This don't make no sense. But it was because I was trying to be something that I wasn't.
Right.
And the issue is when you try to be something that you're not for so long, you begin to believe that's who you really are.
Absolutely.
So now you're living a lie. And that's not who I was. That's not who I was. And now it took longer to become who I was or who I am because I was so accustomed to being who I wasn't.
That's profound. I like construction, I like buildings and stuff. And the facade is the outside appearance. In Hollywood, they put facades up.
Yeah.
They look like the real thing. And you walk into the door, there's nothing behind it. We do the same thing. We build facades. But then when you walk through the door, you find out that there's nothing behind it because that's not you. You're that's just what you show to everybody. That's what you want everybody to see. But So you're kind of like, you're kind of like the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
You know, outside, but then when you pull the curtain back, there's this little guy back there messing with the controls and stuff like that to make everybody think that he's this great big Wizard of Oz.
Now, this is going to be kind of funny. Thank God I saw The Wiz, because believe it or not, I've never seen The Wizard of Oz.
Oh, Richard Pryor, right? Oh,
Yeah.
There's a good thing too. Yeah, the new color green.
yeah. I've never seen The Wizard of Oz. My wife makes fun of me all the time because of it. But no, you're right. It's a facade. It's a facade. And the issue with living a lie or with the facade is when you get to the place where you're by yourself and you know that's not you.
Yes.
You feel little. You feel small. You feel inadequate. You feel defeated because you're not doing or living your true purpose or your true destiny.
Let me ask you a question. Those midnight talks that you had with some of those kids,
Mm-hmm.
did they come out and tell you that they kind of got caught out there being someone that they're not, and now they have to live with that for the next 10, 15 years because of the things that they did?
I've had kids, most of them, they wouldn't have said that. They not exactly like that, but they were hinting at these things. Right. I didn't have a choice. Mm-hmm. I wish I changed. I wish I did this differently. But some of them, especially in that type of environment, never do that because of trust issues.
Right.
Trust issues are huge. So with me, like I said, most of them, they would admit things like, I wish I never got caught up in this. I wish I had someone to change me. There was, some of them was even lying about the crimes they committed because they wanted to fit in, because they wanted to look.
Right.
And, it's like, you didn't do that. You did this, but
right.
They're walking around with a facade. They're walking around in a facade, and you always know, especially those kids, the facade when they're challenged with the real deal. It's like someone was saying about when the Chrysler 300s came out. I forgot, it was one of the comedians. They said, you pulling up in a Chrysler thinking it's a Rolls Royce or acting like it's a Rolls Royce. It's a real Rolls Royce.
Bentley, look like a Bentley. Like a Bentley.
Like a Bentley until a real Bentley pulls up.
Exactly.
Then you like, oh my goodness. And that's when we realized most of the time when they were confronted with the real deal. And oftentimes what people have to realize is you're going to be confronted with the real thing.
That's right.
You're going to be confronted with the real thing. How are you going to respond to that is the situation. So a lot of them operated in fear. A lot of them tried to be tougher than they were. And you saw it. But they didn't know. These kids they don't know, because they've been programmed and trained through life. You have to be like this. You have to be like this. You have to be like this. So they don't really understand how to be anything different than that, because they've just been taught you have to be like this.
This is an interesting direction that we're taking with this metamorphosis, this transformation, this total transformation, because in our society today, those of us who live in the inner cities and things like that, and what we see every day, President Carl Washington, Empire State Baptist Convention, said, we've had 4 mass shootings in New York City since the Buffalo mass shooting in Buffalo, 4. 2 in Brooklyn, 1 in Manhattan, 1 in the Bronx. Mass shootings, more than one person getting shot at the same time. And a large part of that, many of those shootings are not because someone came from the outside, like in Buffalo, drove 3 hours or 4 hours to get there, and then had body armor on and everything else and went into a store and started shooting. These are kids that live across the street, down the hall, that they're shooting at one another. They're shooting and killing each other. And oftentimes they miss because they don't know how to shoot.
Yeah.
So the question becomes, how do we now, as men of God, you and I, and those listening, you don't have to be in ministry. but you got to love human life. You got to love humanity. How do we help our community to transform that negativity into positivity? And that's a question that we got to wrestle with real strongly. And we got to really, as we're wrestling with it, we have to be in their faces because we got to be there. You know, this is not a conversation or something that will happen because we talk about it, but we have to really be about it. So I'll put that to you. What do we do? What do we do? How do we create transformation in our youth in particular? Because that's what and I'm glad that we're on our youth, because we really need to be talking about that. And that's a conversation that we really need to have. So
I think one of the things that we need to do with our young people is be present. I think the biggest gift that we can give them is our presence, not just telling them that they're wrong, not just telling them that they got to get it together, but really being there for them. Oftentimes they run to a place where they need to feel accepted. And some of them they're not accepted in the homes. They're not accepted anywhere else. So now they're doing things that are, violence and on all these type of things. I think the first thing we need to do is be present. We can't stop something if we're not there.
Right.
So that's one of the things that we need to do. The other thing I feel like, and I share this with my church, there are things that, for instance, children are running to gangs, for instance, and we're like, we need to shut this down. But what are we going to do? How do we replace that? They're running to a place where they feel like they need to be.
Right.
How do we now replace that, or now, make it a positive thing for them? What can we do? What system can we create that allows our young people to know you don't have to do it this way? You don't have to go down this road. Programs are great. The programs that we have now are great, but there needs to be more.
Right.
There needs to be more, and intentional programs, intentional people that are there listening. That's a huge thing right now.
Yeah. Remember when I was a child, when I was a kid, teenager, most of the businesses in the community, I grew up in the Bronx too. I grew up in the South Bronx. And most of the businesses in my community were owned by people of color. Either they were Black or they were brown. I remember there was a gentleman who had a shoe shining shop. He used to shine shoes. And in that shop, he had a pool table. And we would go down there and shoot pool. We didn't shine our shoes because we wore sneakers, but we went shoot pool. And he used to talk to us, and give us guidance and information so that we would be able to, to navigate the vicissitudes of life. And so, many of the businesses in the community would do that. I remember there was a gentleman, I'll never forget his name, is John E. Moore. And he owned a little repair shop. And it was literally a little business in the side of the building that had no windows. And there was just a little hole in the wall. And he did electronic repairs. And I remember going to him when I graduated from elementary school. And, we used to have those graduation books. I don't know if you remember those or not, but we had graduation books and people would sign them.
Yes.
They would put money in those books and stuff. And, people would write all kinds of things. People would do all kinds of decorations. And I mean, it was just an amazing thing. I wish I still had one. But he wrote in my book, I'll never forget it. He said, big T, types of people, those who don't know what's happening, those who ask what's happening, those who make things happen. He said, which will you be? I mean, of all the things that were written in my book, that one stuck out larger than, and I still remember it till today. When I see other people say it, I remember John E. Moore writing that in my book, in my graduation book. And I remember the profoundness of it because it made me think. And what I found out about working with young people is that they can't think and act at the same time.
No.
Found this out, right? They can't. If you make them think, they're like, huh? They'll freeze because they can't manipulate this and that at the same time.
No. Yeah.
So I would ask them a lot of questions. And I remember that from my life growing up. And, sort of like, I wasn't necessarily the guy that created a lot of problems. I mean, I could be a problematic kid, but for the most part, my friends were so problematic that, it didn't make sense for me to do it because they would create all kinds of problems, so I said, I'll just be cool. I'll be the cool one, And so, in fact, my friends tell me today that one of my friends, one of my closest friends, I don't know if he's on tonight or not, but he told me this. He said, I hated you when we were growing up.
Wow.
Said, what do you mean you hated me? And we were friends since we were 12 years old. What are you talking about? He said, no, I don't mean hate you like hate you. He said, but I hated you because you didn't do things that I felt that I couldn't say no to. You wouldn't do them. Like the guy said, yo, we're going to go out and we're going to do this crime, right? So I'm not going with y'all.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going. Oh, man, you a punk. I said, I don't care what you call me, man. I ain't going because that's stupid. And I would leave and go with my other friends, And my friend said, I used to hate you for that because I couldn't do that.
Wow.
I couldn't. And now we were adults when he told me that. And I said, wow. He said, yeah, man. He said, that's why I'm never letting you out of my life, ever. And we've been friends forever, best friend. See, because, a quote unquote, I'm like Charles Barkley. I don't want to use the word role model, but somebody who can model things for you.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be somebody who's older than you. It can be anybody who's got that fortitude and that commitment. And so I like to tell young people, look, just determine who you are and be, like you said, be that person. Because if you're that person, you ever heard, I'm sure you did, Nelson Mandela, when he became the president of South Africa. And he said, our greatest fear, I read it last week. I'm gonna read it again this week because I really want everybody to hear this. And I refer to it quite a bit because it is by far one of the most compelling things I've ever read. Denzel Washington also said it in The Great Debaters. Remember that movie, The Great Debaters?
I think I may have seen it once.
Yeah, it was amazing. And in every movie, there's one line that really captures everything. But listen to what her name is Marianne Williamson. This is what she wrote. She said, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It's our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you.
Wow.
We were all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, listen to this, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others.
Wow.
Isn't that a profound?
That's amazing. It reminds me, oftentimes people, especially when we have messed up in life, we can't believe that we still have the ability to be who God called us to be.
Yes.
Be that great. I heard a statement that said, it's not that people don't believe God. It's that they don't believe what God said about them. And that is a struggle that a lot of people have. I can't believe that I'm still able to be this great. I can't believe this because most of us have doubt. We're our hardest critic. And people say we're our hardest critic. For me personally, I was my hardest critic. And I felt like I could never be like this person or be like that person. One of my best teachers in being able to say, this is who I am and this is who I'm going to be was my son.
Mm,
Especially my youngest, um, my oldest is he's the cool, laid back one. He taught me like, listen, just let it, it is what it is.
mhm, mhm, mhm.
My youngest son, at the age of 3 or 4, taught himself how to ride a two-wheeler bike.
Mm,
He, is a football phenomenon. He
mm,
broke records for his team. He's a musician. I mean, the boy, this is me, and I'm going to be the best that I can
mm,
be. And just seeing his attitude about it, he was getting a little arrogant at one point, but not too arrogant, but just like, this is me, allow me to say, you got to get to the place where you're confident in yourself.
absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
both of my boys are just like, they just have that confidence in themselves. And that taught me, even in my adulthood, I
Mm,
was still struggling with self-doubt,
yep.
and they taught me, listen, you won't be great unless you know that you're great.
Right. Right. That's what you just said is, in my opinion, the central component in transformation.
Mm-hmm.
You can't be who God wants you to be unless you accept that God wants you to be that individual. You gotta look at yourself and say, you know what? I deserve what I got. I was made in the image of God, just like Marianne Williamson says, I was made in this image. And if I don't allow me to be who I am, then not only am I not giving myself a chance, but all those people around me who look to me are saying, well, if he won't do it, then what'll happen to me? That's the guy I look up to. So if he can't do it, well, what's in it for me? I may as well go crazy.
Yeah.
I may as well just give up. And so you can't, because you have an obligation. You have an obligation not just to yourself, but to every person that's in your life, in your circle of influence, in your world, everybody. Now, I did a homegoing service today. Gentleman had developmental disabilities.
Mm.
And in his obituary said that, his smile would light you up. There's not a person who met him that didn't fall in love with him. Well, that was who he was. You know why? He couldn't be anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
He couldn't try to be like that person over there. That was not in his DNA. He only could be who God created him to be. He's the person that we should be looking at saying, that's how we should model our lives. Be who God created you to be. Don't worry about everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem is we begin to compare ourselves with others. And then those that are quote unquote better than us, or we think are better than us, then we said we can't ever get there. And so we quit. And those who are less than, we tend to look down upon them and ridicule them. So, they're not good enough. They're better than. So if the book, I'm Okay, You're Okay. If you ever read it, if you haven't read it, it's an awesome read. But, if I'm not okay and you're okay, that's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not okay and I'm okay, that's a problem.
Yeah.
But if I'm okay and you're okay, now we got something going on. So we both have to be, I have to see you as being okay, and I have to see myself as being okay. With those things, we can make the world into what we would have it to be. Yes. That's the critical piece, and what you said is right. You have to be willing to be who you are. Stop faking it, because you ain't gonna make it by faking.
You're not. And here's because I love the talking about transformation. I love the example of the caterpillar.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that I realized, especially with spiritual transformation, a lot of people are stuck on themselves. Yep. I said this now. A reason why we don't change is because we're too selfish. People taking selfies and selfie. Everybody's just on them. But if you really look or at the caterpillar, when he goes into the cocoon, if you open up that cocoon, you're not going to find some half caterpillar, half butterfly. You're going to find gook,
Yep.
because the caterpillar literally has to die to
Yep.
himself in
Yep.
order to become what he's meant to be. And oftentimes we don't want to die to ourselves because it's become our wall, it's
Right.
become our protection.
Right.
And now we have people that's like, well, if I transform, that means I'm gonna have to lose my attitude, but that makes me vulnerable. If
Yep.
I transform, I have to walk around and be nice,
Yep.
but me being mean is
Right.
my
Right.
way.
That's
My
my thing. I like that. I like being mean.
fear. That's my defense mechanism. And
Right.
oftentimes we get stuck in wanting to be us and not be who we're really called to.
Mm.
And I was reading the scripture today. Jesus says, if a man, if you lose your life,
Mm.
then you'll gain your life.
Yes.
That doesn't make sense to us in the natural, but what he's really saying is you have to die to who you think you're supposed to be,
Mm-hmm.
and allow you and allow me to teach you who you're called to be.
Right.
Oftentimes, a TV is nothing unless it's plugged into the power source.
Right.
I don't care how beautiful it is. It's nothing unless it's plugged into a power source. My computer is nothing unless I plug it into the power source. And true transformation comes in knowing who you are. And the only way you can know who you are is by plugging into the power source, getting to know God.
And if I add to that, if your television is not tuned to a station, it doesn't make much of a difference.
No.
You have all the power in the world, but ain't no station, you ain't seeing nothing.
Yeah.
Because you gotta be, as one of my friends used to say, you gotta be on the right bus, heading in the right direction, but
Yes.
sitting in the right seat.
Yes.
So, hey, by the way, it's at the top of the hour. And what I always do at the top of the hour, as I go back, read the article again, introduce everybody to my sponsors and advertisers, etc., and put that challenge question on the table again. Because when we come back after that little break, then what we'll do is we'll engage the audience in this conversation, and we'll address and sort of tie into that question as well. What types of things are you willing to change to have a total spiritual transformation? So I'm going to put myself, I'm going to sort of disappear. You can do the same. You can drop your screen for a moment, and I'm going to leave mine for just a minute so that we can go on and do do our thing. And I'm going to reintroduce everybody to what we're doing, and then we'll just go from there. All right. So just give us a few minutes, everybody. Y'all know, y'all regular viewers, you know what we do. So I'm going to share my screen again. Share my screen with you guys, and we're going to go ahead and do that. So here we go. Are the trustees in your house of worship knowledgeable of all of their fiduciary responsibilities? Are the disciples of your house of worship aware of the Lord's biblical economic strategies? Are you planning to renovate, build, refinance, or develop your church property? Well, the JLR company, J. Lauren R. Consulting LLC, is here to help you. Give us a call at 718-328-8096. That's 718-328-8096. Or visit our website And just as a reminder, 5 years and younger are eligible to be vaccinated now. So consider that. Talk to your pediatrician, but consider it. The virus is not quite finished yet.
1 Corinthians chapter 6, verses 19 and 20, New King James Version. Or do you not know that your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit, who is in you, whom you have from God, and you are not your own? For you were bought at a price. Therefore glorify God in your body and in your spirit, which are God's. Total transformation. The Oxford Dictionary defines transformation as a thorough or dramatic change in form or appearance. What always comes to mind for me when I think of a transformation is what happens to a caterpillar when it transforms into a butterfly. It is not a little change. It is a total transformation, unrecognizable as the same creature that wraps itself in its cocoon. Paul writes to the Corinthian believers with words of encouragement and instruction. The encouragement is that our bodies are the dwelling place of the Holy Spirit. They were no longer the sole occupants of their bodies. They now belong to God who purchased them for a price. Although it's not in the text, the price that was paid was the death of Christ on the cross. That payment gave him the right to use their bodies as his dwelling place. Paul reminded the believers in Corinth of who they were in verses 9 through 11, the first part. Then in the last two sentences of verse 11, he tells them who they became after their transformation. Quote, do you not know that the unrighteous will not inherit the kingdom of God? Do not be deceived. Neither fornicators, nor idolaters, nor adulterers, nor homosexuals, nor sodomites, nor thieves, nor covetous, nor drunkards, nor revilers, nor extortioners will inherit the kingdom of God. And such were some of you. But you were washed, but you were sanctified, but you were justified in the name of the Lord Jesus and by the Spirit of our God. Unquote. Believers today should have the same transformative experience as the believers in the Corinthian church. When they do, believers also go through a metamorphosis. A genuine spiritual transformation should be as dramatic in us as the transformation of the caterpillar into a butterfly. We ought to sprout wings of righteousness, exhibit an attitude of gratitude, show a propensity for forgiveness, display a willingness to love, and demonstrate a spirit of generosity. Our total transformation will be so complete that we, like the transformed caterpillar, are no longer recognizable when compared to who we were. Be blessed. Here's my question tonight. What types of things are you willing to change to have a total spiritual transformation? Let me ask that question again. What types of things are you willing to change to have a total spiritual transformation?
Amen. I'm going to stop my share at this time, and I'm going to bring back my guest. You know, we're talking to tonight, having a wonderful conversation with Reverend William Daniels III, Pastor William Daniels. This is a great conversation, and I'm looking forward to a continuing conversation. But I want to now engage this question that we've been talking about sort of around. We've been looking at it from a lot of different ways, and I put it up on the Facebook screen for everybody to see. What types of things are you willing to change to have a total spiritual transformation? Now, understanding that transformation is a process. I doubt very seriously if it don't happen automatically, that everything that you tend to do will happen immediately. When you look at the butterfly, you understand that it takes time. The transformation takes time. And as Pastor Daniels has said, if you cut a cocoon open, you're not going to find what you might think you'll find inside, but you'll find a blob. You'll find a bunch of stuff that's in there that is just sort of looking to reconfigure itself into that which will be the butterfly. So I'm going to ask my guest to actually give us and engage that question for himself, and then we're going to take it from there. Pastor, what types of things are you, and we make it personal, are you willing to change to have a total spiritual transformation. And you got a good history because you had to make some transformations in your life. So this is pretty good for you.
I had to be willing to give up or change myself.
Mm.
I had to be willing to change myself. I didn't want to let go of who I thought I was. My transformation, like you said, it was a process. I would say it took about 3 years for me to get it. At 19 years old, I remember my pastor at the time, who was my aunt, she called me in the office. I was acting crazy. I gotten somebody pregnant, just doing things I had no business doing. And she said to me this, she said, God told me to take my hands off you so he can deal with you himself. And that week, I got arrested. Because my license was suspended. I got maced. I got thrown on the floor. It was bad. And it broke me at that moment because I realized in order for me to really become or transform into who God is calling me to do, I have to let go of this version of William.
Right.
And letting go of that version of William was difficult. Because I was so accustomed to that version of William. So I think a lot of times letting go of yourself, me personally, letting go of me is what transformed me. Letting go of what I thought about myself is what transformed me. I had to learn how to love again. That I had to be transformed for that because I thought I wasn't worthy to be loved anymore.
Right.
So I think a lot of time of letting go of the thought of who you are is the hardest part. But that's what I had to let go of. I had to be willing to change.
That's interesting. The thought that because I guess, when you spend a lot of time building your facade, you begin to believe it's true yourself. You begin to believe your own lie.
Yes.
And that's interesting. I tell a little story. I like to tell this little story. I said, just imagine a little person that's growing up, and when they're small, the little kid, they say, somebody asks, what do you want to be when you grow up? And they just begin to elaborate. Just the imagination goes, and they think about all these wonderful things that they want to do as they grow up. And then as they grow, they begin to run into a lot of obstacles. People tell them, you can't do that. That's too much for you. You're not good enough for that. And so they say, but I want to do that. And what they do is they begin to hurt because people are hurting them. And so what they begin to do is they begin to build that facade, that created thing, and they begin to encase themselves in this facade. But it's not who they are. They're on the inside, but they've created a prison for themselves.
Yes.
That's based upon all of the negativity that has been coming in. And so they built that facade to protect that child, to protect the child. And then every now and then somebody will stick their head and say, but who are you? And then you'll say, well, I told you I'm going to be a doctor. And then somebody will say, listen, the wall that you built up will say, shut up. You know how that hurts. Go back in there. Don't come out. Don't say anything. I got this. I got you protected. I'm protecting you. And then the little child sits down and says, yeah, but I want to be a doctor. But she stays there because she's afraid. See, the only way to free that child is to come out of that wall, to come out behind those walls. You got to come out and understand that children are truly resilient. They may hurt, but they won't break. They'll just bounce right back. You ever see a baby when he or she falls as they're learning to walk? Initially, they'll be crying and you pick them up. But then after a while, they'll fall and you go to pick them up, they'll hit you. They'll because they don't want your help anymore. Because I got this, I can do this. That's the way they are when they come out of behind those walls. But oftentimes people get so encased in that prison that they made, they never come out.
For for me, a lot of times we think that we don't have the resources and or
Mm,
skills to be who we're called to be.
yeah, yeah.
Like stuck. I just did a Bible study on freedom, about being free in Christ and what that really means.
Mm,
Oftentimes, what hijacks our dreams and thoughts is fear.
right,
Is fear of what this looks like.
right.
And I asked the question, even thinking biblically, I wonder what would have happened if David said, I can't beat him.
Mm,
It looks different than what I'm presenting right now.
mm-hmm,
He has a sword. He has this, Saul,
right.
he's been training for this. But I know who I'm called to be.
Mm,
And when you know who you're called to be, you just show up
yep,
and you
yep,
just be. you know,
yep.
someone, I forgot who I heard this from, but people said we're so busy trying to be humans doing.
Yes, instead of human beings. That's right.
Just be who you're called to
That's
be.
right. That's right. That's right.
We a lot of people are dealing with what I say is arrested development, because they're still battling these child issues of, I still just want to be who I believe I'm called to be.
Mm,
And I believe that total transformation it's necessary. It is very necessary, because now we're dealing with a lot of humans doing instead of
right.
humans.
Absolutely. It's interesting, right? Because when you're being who you were created to be, the doing becomes easy.
Yes.
And you won't do stuff that's out of your personality and out of your character, because you've identified who you are. Now you know what you don't want.
Yes.
So the closer you get to who you are, the less you want to go over there to what you're not. I don't have to do that. I said with my friends, for some reason or another, as a young kid, I just had a sense of purpose. Now, that doesn't happen for everyone, but I had a sense of purpose. I knew what I did not want. I was clear about that. Now, I wasn't clear necessarily about what I wanted, but I was real clear about what I didn't want. I know I did not want to go to jail. I didn't want nobody slamming no gates behind me. Those kinds of things I was clear about. So I wouldn't do some things. In fact, if I would do something, I'd think about the consequences and I say, you know what? I'm not going to do that anymore, because if I get caught, I may wind up right where I said I don't want to be.
Yes.
So you're right. You're right. Now let's talk about some people have put some comments. I want you to hear some of the comments. I don't know if you're looking at it or not, but I've been kind of monitoring some of the comments that have been made thus far. And one of my regular guests, Brother Dow always has something very interesting to say. He says, "Are you real enough to stand when you're confronted by the real?" And that's kind of like what you said.
Yeah.
But he asked you, are you real enough to stand when you're confronted by the real? So when a wannabe gangster meets a real gangster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You said it before, you want to be, so you don't know how to shoot.
Right. Exactly. You ain't going no range.
Yeah, you have someone that knows what they're doing. You have no choice but to back down. But when you know who you are, first of all, when you know who you are, you don't put yourself in situations that
absolutely
don't belong to you.
Absolutely.
And a lot of times what we're facing is people that are pretending their facade. So what's happening is they're living in a space that really they don't belong. So what it is survival. Because I don't really belong here.
Right.
So do what I have to do to survive. So I'm going to fake it till I make it, but you'll never make it, because that's not who you're meant to be.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Right. I always think about, if you're out of position, if you're supposed to, I'm going to use a sports analogy. If you're supposed to be playing first base and you trying to play the catcher, you out of place.
Yeah.
You're out of place. People run over you. They knock you there because you don't know how to play. You don't know how to play the catcher's position. If you are a point guard and you're trying to play the center's position, you're out of place. You can't do that. In the football analogy, if you're the quarterback and you're trying to be the running back, you're going to get killed because you don't know what you're doing back there. You may know the role, but you're not equipped to do the work.
And equipping comes with practice.
Yes.
My son, like I told you before, he's a football star.
Mm.
He's a running back.
Mm.
Got to a place where he wasn't going to practice. He showed up whenever he wanted to show up. So his coach said, okay, you're going to be on the line. And now you have people from the sidelines yelling, give him the ball, take him off the line, because he doesn't belong there. But the truth of the matter is, because you did not show up,
right,
you were put in a place that you really weren't supposed to be.
Absolutely.
And often people don't take things seriously enough.
Right.
So, and now you're, like you said, you're put in a place. You're a running back, but you're on the line playing.
Exactly. Right. Now you were put out of position.
Yeah.
You know, you didn't choose to be out of position, because sometimes you don't choose these things. Now, sometimes not choosing something could be the best thing that could happen for you, but other times it could be the worst thing that ever happened to you, because you're really out of position. Yeah. And so in order to maximize or to be transformed into the butterfly that you can become, the beautiful butterfly, you have to be in position. You have to be in the cocoon. You have to be in a transformative state. You have to be willing to put the work in. I like that, because now that's one of the things that the kids talk about. They got to put the work in. You know, if you don't put the work in, don't expect to get the results.
No. And being okay, and speaking of the cocoon, being okay with you. For me, I one of the things that caused when I realized I got to, get out of this is I didn't like being by myself. When you're in the cocoon, the caterpillar is only in the cocoon with himself.
Right.
And a lot of people fear being, if you don't like you, then nobody else is going to like you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You have to get to the point where you learn how to like yourself. I think self-care is very necessary. That's that cocoon part where you just learn how to love yourself, embrace yourself, because it's just you and God. It's just you and God, and being in that place, I got to the place where I was like, all right, well, before I got married, it was like, I'll take myself out to dinner. I'll go to the movies by myself, because I begin to love me. And you can't, you'll always battle with this facade if you don't learn how to love yourself.
So it's really interesting, right? I guess some of what you're saying, you keep hitting the nail on the head, I was about 7 or 8 years old. I wanted to see the movie Rumpelstiltskin. It's in the movies. I wanted to see it. Told my mom, told my dad. Said, nobody's here to take you. I said, so let me go by myself. You can't go to the movies by yourself. I said, why not? I said, you too small. You can't do that. So I said, well, can you get somebody to take me? So what they did is they called one of my cousins, older cousins. There was a movie theater around the corner from where she lived. I said, would you take this boy to the movie? You don't have to stay. Just come back and get him. She said, I can do that. So I went to her house. She took me around the corner to the movie. She told the manager, she said, listen, this is my cousin, and he's going to watch the movie. I'm not going to stay, but I'm going to come back and get him. What time's the movie over? So they told her, she said, oh, no, we'll take good care of him. And so you want some popcorn? So I got me some popcorn. I got me a soda. I went and watched Rumpelstiltskin all by myself when I was about 7 or 8 years old.
Wow.
And I had a ball. I had a ball. I've been going to the movies by myself all my life. I don't care if nobody wants to go with me. I want to see the movie. I'm going. So it's interesting when you say that you have to learn to be by yourself and with yourself, because a lot of people do not know what it's like to be by themselves, and actually being by themselves is kind of scary.
Yeah.
So they keep things going all the time.
Yeah.
Music, television, something's got to be on. They even sleep with it on.
Yeah.
They even sleep with it on because they don't know how to get. Last week I had a phenomenal guest on. Brother, she got into meditation. So we talked about meditation and what that means and how that looks in our community as Christians. I said, well, you know, one of the things that we talked about was the misunderstanding and the misappropriation of meditation because they see it as an Eastern philosophy.
Yes.
But the Bible talks about meditation all the time.
Yeah.
So, but we don't do that because it puts us in a state of meanness in a positive way, not the selfish me, but the meanness. Get to know who you are, because once you get to know who you are, now you can be the person that the Lord has created you to be because you know who you are.
We just did a Bible study at our church maybe about 3 weeks ago, a month ago. We did about 3 or 4 weeks of meditating on God. So it's said the same thing. A lot of people don't do it because of their misunderstanding of what meditation really is. But meditation allows you to really know who you are, and then when you apply it in with the scriptures and whose you are, and those things really begin to open up.
Right.
The Bible says that Jesus says, and and you will be my disciples, and you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. Knowing the truth about who you are through the scriptures, through the word of God, So these are things that are important. We need to, some of us, and I told our churches, some people need to reintroduce themselves to themselves.
I agree with that.
Reintroduce yourself. My wife is big on this. I can't be mad at the way people treat me. I have to teach you how to treat me.
Absolutely.
And because we've been living this facade, we've been living this lies. We're saying, oh, people just treat me bad. People just treat me bad. No. You've taught them how to treat that version of you. But now in transformation, you're going to have to reteach people how to treat you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's absolutely right. I remember had a friend, became a friend. He was at a level above me as my supervisor was. And he and I just developed a good relationship. And I didn't have that great a relationship with the person who was immediately over me. And he said, sometimes you have to teach people how to supervise you. And I said, you know what? I said, you make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So I began teaching her how to work with me. Not only did we develop a great working relationship, but today both of us are no longer with that organization. We're close. We're best of friends.
Wow.
Best of friends, because it wasn't just about how do you treat someone or how do you teach someone to treat you, but you also open up yourself to be loved and to give love. And that becomes a part of the relationship that transcends whatever the situation or the circumstances are. You started the conversation earlier. You said God is always involved in whatever situations you go through. So I agree with that. And I think that when you become a child of God, you said they will know that you're my disciples when you have love one for another. And the love that you share with others opens the door for them to love you as well, and the relationship to become what the Lord has intended for it to be, so that people will be blessed through you and the relationship.
It goes back to something that you had said before. People don't know what love is anymore because they have not been able to truly accept it. My family, my mother, my father, they show love, but they're from the South, so if my father or my mother calls and I say, all right, and they say, all right, I love you, I'm like, what? Are you all right? What's going on? What's going on? It's from that old, that old way of thinking. Well, that old Southern background. Now, my wife's family, that's something that they practice. I love you, I love you, I love you. Oftentimes, people have not experienced true love. I say all the time, love is not a feeling. Love is an action. Because there's certain times I don't want to do this, but biblically, what love is patient, love is kind, and there's sometimes I don't want to be kind to you. I don't feel like doing this.
Hmm.
But when you're being intentional with loving people, then you'll begin to see a change. I know, and I just want to go backwards. One of the things that we need is we need intentional people, people that are intentional with loving, because there's a whole bunch of people that want to do things, but they want to do it for the wrong reason. Oh, I want to create a system to help violence because it will put me on the map, or I want to do this because it will put my name out there.
Mhm.
But not really saying, I want to do this because I love people. I want to do this because I love my community enough to say, hey, enough is enough. And we need people that's going to really love enough to cause change. Love also will cause transformation.
That's right. That's
Love
right.
transformation. I need to love you enough to say, hey, I see you're going through something and I'm going to help you through it. Hey, something's going on. I need to love somebody enough to help them realize this is not who you really are. Like I said, that teacher that spoke to me, that was love. And that love caused or sparked transformation in that area of my life.
Wow. Listen to this. This is interesting. A couple of things. Lois Giles, my friend, love Lois. She said, being by yourself teaches you to love yourself and know who you are. Daryl says, you know how some women are real mothers, where people see her do something for a child and they say, yeah, that's a real mother right there.
Mm-hmm.
You can even hear it in her talk. This is for you and I. Well, tonight is a real father's talk. You two speak as real fathers. So thank you, Daryl.
Thank you. Yes.
Gloria says, love, so many hearts have become waxed cold, just like the Bible said it would.
Yes.
And then Yvonne says, my parents are Bahamian, and I can't recall the expression of love going up this world, going up. I can't recall the expressions of love going up. This world doesn't know what real love is. I'm gonna speak to that in just a moment. And Louise says, love is a choice. And then Dow quotes Deuteronomy 4:37, and because he loved thy father, therefore he chose their seed after them and brought thee out in his sight with his mighty power out of Egypt. And Yvonne says, love comes with an attachment.
Yes.
She says, growing up. So let me say this about love. This is interesting. This is one of my favorite topics. In the Greek language, there are 3 words for love. And the first is eros. And eros is a romantic love.
Yes.
It's what we feel for our loves. It's what, like, Luther Vandross sings about, house is not a home, that kind of thing. We love people because we fall in love with them. And then there's phileo, which is friendship, right? Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love. We engage ourselves with people. We like people that we like. We love people that we like. That basically is that. But then that third word is agape. And agape is not something romantic. It's not a friendship. Agape is understanding, creative, redemptive goodwill for all men. Theologians like to say that it's the love of God operating in the human heart.
Yes.
And when you love at that level, you don't love people because you like them. You love them because God loves them.
Yes.
Now, that's a difficult, challenging place to get to, because that means that you have to give up. And this is what you said earlier about William. You have to give up who you are in order to embrace who you can become.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be willing to go into the cocoon. You have to be willing to be alone. You have to be willing to give up and die to everything that you hold dear in order to live. And then you know how to love.
Mm-hmm.
And so many people, some people say, love me the way you love yourself. No, I don't want you to love me, some people, the way you love yourself, because some people don't love themselves at all. Mm-hmm. And so they hurt themselves. I mean, self-destructive tendencies. What are they? Drinking, drugging, lack of exercise, gluttony, you name it, the 7 deadly sins, it's all there. And all of it points to the fact that you don't necessarily love yourself.
Yes.
And so you attack yourself from all different angles. And then when somebody comes around, now think about this. This is because we started just talking about the some parts about the gun violence in our communities. A lot of that is because of self-hate.
Yes.
Right? We don't like ourselves. And so we want people to hurt like we do.
Mm-hmm.
And so we don't care that they hurt worse. I'm always in remembrance of, you remember, did you see the movie Tales from the Hood? Not Boys from the Hood, Tales from the Hood.
I actually saw Tales from the Hood. I don't even think I saw Boys from the Hood. Boys in the
Okay.
Hood. Tales from the Hood, yes.
Tales from the Hood. If you haven't seen it, you need, it's a science fiction sort of reality-based movie about life in African-American community.
Mm-hmm.
One of them is a gangster, young gangster kid, you know, and he shoots and kills other people, and some kids, they go because they heard there was they're gonna steal the money from the funeral parlor. Clarence Williams III. Clarence Williams III was in it, starred in it. And if you haven't, I don't want to tell you, every young person needs to see this movie. Every teenager needs this. Every adult needs to see this movie. Everyone who's quote unquote wild and out needs to see this movie, because it brings the reality into our very life that, you know what, you can get caught up in the wrong thing and you can wind up going in the wrong direction, and you may not be fortunate enough to get out. No. You may not be a William Daniels III who was a knucklehead, but then, you know, was turned around. And I want to talk with you a moment too about the transformation, when that actually took place. Can you put your finger on the day and the time that transformation in your life took place, when you went from being the knucklehead of the class to being the pastor of the church?
Yeah. For me, there was many stages. There was different times that transformation takes place. And I'll say this, you don't transform once. There's many times where you keep having to take transformation. So one of the first times was when they said to me, I remember my mother, I was just cutting school. Not cutting to do anything. I was cutting to go home and go to sleep. And my mother called me one day and she said, where are you? She said, before you lied to me, this is the thing about having Christian parents. She said, before you, I know where you are. The Lord already revealed to me where you are. I was like, no, Mom, I'm not there. She said, I know where you are. The Lord is not lying. Are you telling me So that was when I said, you know what? And my teacher said to me, you have to pass with an 80 average in order to graduate. That was one turnaround. I had to take life seriously. The next one was the very next year. Like I shared, I had gotten arrested. I only spent a few hours in jail and got let go. That was another turnaround. I then, being young, being silly, being in church, you know, like I said, I had gotten my then girlfriend pregnant. And then, thought you would learn, but got pregnant again. And I said, okay, no, we gotta get married. This is, we going down. And got into this situation, but for the wrong reasons. And went through a rough divorce. And the Lord had to transform me again, because there were certain things that I just didn't, I believed about myself that weren't true. And I remember just feeling like I was nothing. I was not just less than. And the Lord began to build me up. And once you're transformed, and what I love about it is, once you're transformed, you can now go into places that belong to you, and not carry the baggage of your past, or what you've been through. So now, as God is blessed, got married, and Now I'm married, I'm preaching at this point, I'm ministering the word of God and married. And as God is moving, now it's time to pastor. Left the church I've been in all my life and pastored a church that I knew nothing about. And after that, the Lord had to transform me again. I'll tell anyone, if there's any preachers on here, preaching and pastoring are two totally different things. You have to, people that you may be like, I don't want to talk to them. You have to talk to them. You have to pray for people that you may not like. It's a totally different thing. So God has always, my life has always been constant transformation. And when the good thing about constant transformation, when you open yourself up to God in that way, you never stay in a place that I call stuck. And a lot of people, because they won't transform, they get stuck there. And stuck is not the place that I'm not going to be walking in the wilderness for 40 years. I don't want to do that. And a lot of times we get stuck there because we still, even in that stuck place, we still see the hand of God. We still see the miracles, and we're feeling like, oh, this is it. So I'm fine with having manna from heaven. I'm fine with, all these things because
My clothes not wearing out.
Yeah,
I can wear the same stuff 40 years.
I'm good with that.
Exactly.
Now, there's a place that belongs to you, but because you won't get Egypt out of you, you won't transform. And when you transform, let that stuff go, you get called, or you get in a place called stuck. So for me, I've in my life, I've experienced so many different changes, so many different things in my life that it's just always transforming. Even now, I'm just like, all right, God, what's next? Because it's just a constant transformation. One thing I will say that helps in that is to have people that support you. My parents are like the biggest support system. I'm blessed, and I say that unapologetically. My parents are one of my biggest support systems. I thank God for them. My wife is my loudest cheerleader, and now her family has become my biggest supporters as well. My siblings, my biggest supporters. So when you're in a place of transformation, when you have those people that say, we're still going to push you, we're still going to support you, we're still going to pray for you, that makes transformation easier because you have that support system. So for me, like I said, I've been transforming over and over and over again because the wheel is not over. When Jeremiah said, go to the potter's house and I'm going to show you a work. And he's forming the clay, and then the clay got marred, and he put it back, and he kept forming the clay until he made it to what it's supposed to be. And as long as I'm alive, the wheel is not spinning. The potter's wheel hasn't stopped spinning. So I'm always being transformed into something else.
Can I add something to that? A clay pot sitting in the sun will always be a clay pot. But if you put it back in the kiln and you put it under the white heat, it'll become porcelain. What I'm saying is that you're the clay pot.
Yes.
Sometimes the Lord has to put you through more, quote unquote, trial, tribulation, more heat, but then you come out as porcelain.
Yes.
Beautiful, shiny, smooth, because you've been willing to go through the process. I drew this analogy about the butterfly. The butterfly must be willing to go through the process. It's interesting. I did some research. Can I share with you what happens with a butterfly when they actually are transforming? I did some research. Listen to this. The caterpillar, or what is more scientifically termed a larva, stuffs itself with leaves, growing plumper and longer through a series of molts in which it sheds its skin. One day, the caterpillar stops eating, hangs upside down from a twig or a leaf, and spins itself a silky cocoon or molts into a shiny chrysalis. Within its protective casing, the caterpillar radically transforms his body, eventually emerging as a beautiful butterfly or moth. First, the caterpillar digests itself, releasing enzymes to dissolve all of its tissues. Certain highly organized groups of cells known as imaginal discs survive the digestive process, and before hatching, when a caterpillar is still developing inside its eggs, it grows an imaginal disc for each of the adult body parts it will need as a mature butterfly or moth. Disc for its eyes, for its wings, and its legs. And then this article I found it in scientificamerican.com, so you can look it up yourself. But this is how they conclude this article. Once a caterpillar has disintegrated all of its tissue except for the imaginal discs, those discs use the protein-rich soup all around them. And that's what you talked about. If you open a cocoon, you see nothing. It's just a bunch of soup. They use this protein-rich soup all around them to fuel the rapid cell division required to form the wings, the antenna, the legs, the eyes, the genitals, and all the other features of an adult butterfly or moth. You get that? I mean, this transformation is not easy. Literally, it devours itself, and all that's left is a skeleton, if you will. Mm-hmm. Well, when we transform, we have to be willing to give up all of those things that we hold near and dear. Because if not, we cannot transform, because we're holding on to the old us that they were. If the caterpillar did not give up all of its old self, it couldn't be a butterfly. Mm-hmm. Couldn't, because it turns into this larva. It just turns into a bunch of soupy stuff. Yeah. And then it remembers what it has in it. And then it starts to reposition itself and reform itself until it becomes a butterfly. Then it hatches. It's amazing. It's amazing. This process is amazing. So listen to this. Dolores says, I'm willing to stop being self-willed, allowing God's will to guide my will and my life. The Holy Spirit reveals to me what I need to change regularly. That's what you said. More things are being revealed daily. And then Tracy quotes Romans 12:2, and be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. And Yvonne says transformation. I can feel you, girl. Transformation. And amen and amen. I feel you. I feel you. I feel you. This is go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, because I don't want to keep talking, because
I read that scripture today, and I was because I knew we were talking about transformation. And
yes.
Not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. And when I thought about it, I said, okay, renewing, what does that really look like? What is renewing? And it's saying to reestablish your mind, to reestablish. The word renew means to reestablish, because the way we've been programmed to think is by what we see around us oftentimes. But when you really begin to know who you are, meditate on who you are, then things around you or what's happening, you're going to start to transform. No, this stuff doesn't belong to me. Right. I'm not supposed to stay here. But transformation, like you said, is a process that you're going to have to go through. David is the prime example. He was a shepherd and had to become the king. That was who he was supposed to be. So he had to transform from a shepherd to now an armor bearer. That's right.
That's right.
A warrior to now a fugitive. That's right. A getaway, because his life was in danger. But he had to keep changing into something else. Had David said, no, I don't want to be the king. No, I'm good right here, he would have died only knowing what sheep feel like. Right. And a lot of us, we're living below our means. We're living less than we are because we refuse to die to ourselves and say, Lord, make me to who you want me to be. A lot of us are supposed to be in a different place. But because we won't transform, we won't go there. Transformation, you need to be different in order to go into some places. And that's why I believe with God, with the children of Israel, like I said, they were there 40 years in the wilderness and they all had to die out.
Yep.
They could not, they were still in Egypt in their mind.
Right.
They still had an Egypt mentality. So they had to all be wiped out until those that were ready to possess it took place. And I believe that transformation is necessary because we are living below where God is calling us to be.
Well, you know, it's interesting. You said a couple of things. You talked about transformation and renewing. To renew, you know, means that you are refurbished, right?
Yes.
That means you go back to what you once knew. Now, earlier on, we were talking about the fact that God places himself in all of us. Mm-hmm. So we know where we come from. Like the little girl, the little child I was talking about that cocoons themselves or builds a wall and walls themselves in. The God in us is still there. And so Romans 12:2 says, you know, transformed by the renewing of your mind. Go back to what you know. Go back to your original thought. What you did as a junior high schooler when you were wilding out. Yeah, you had some other incidents that occurred in your life, but only because you would not follow the path that was set before you. You were the rebellious one. Had nothing to do with the Lord. He was standing there saying, hey, look, behold, I stand at the door. I'm knocking. You can go anywhere you want, but I'm going to be here. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going to leave you in this mess. I'm going to stand here. But you have to make the choice for yourself. And sometimes we don't do that. And then you talked about, you know, just not getting back to who you are, but really becoming who it is that God created you to be. Now, that's a little different. That's a process that we need to be in, that we need to embrace and engage, because you used David as an example, and I loved it. And you stopped short of where I would have gone. Where I would have gone and said, yeah, not only that, he became the king. Then he became he became a peeping Tom. Then he became an adulterer. Then he became a murderer.
Yeah.
And he had to transform from all of that.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, when you looked at him from the time that he was a shepherd boy, when he fought lions and tigers and bears, oh my, and went to fight Goliath and all of that other stuff. But the biggest challenge was the challenge that he put on his own life.
Yes.
It was bigger than Goliath. It was bigger than Saul chasing him through the woods. It was the challenge he placed in his own life. In fact, it was so bad that violence never left his house. He never saw peace in his house again. Even his own son tried to kill him. So choices that you make have real consequences. David had to repent from all of that and be transformed all over again. And then the Lord said of him, he's a man after my own heart.
Yes.
Why? Because he recognizes that he can't do this on his own. He needed me. And he came back to me. And I love him for that. And yeah, he made his life miserable. He really did, you know. See, you can be saved, sanctified, Holy Ghost filled, fire baptized, and you're going to get the glory. You're going to heaven. The Lord made a man. He got a mansion with your name on it. But you can mess your life up so bad that your days will be full of trouble, just like Job said, full of trouble. And then you die and get your reward. But why would you want to go through life and have everything like a life of hell just to get the glory? Jesus said, I've come that you might have life and that more abundantly. You can have it here and there.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
Choose. And the biggest part is that be who God created you to be. Be transformed, totally transformed, not just a superficial one, but be totally transformed so that you are everything that God desires for you and you've ever desired for yourself. Let me ask you a question, Doc. Is your life working for the Lord better than it was when you were being a knucklehead?
I'll say yes. thanks be unto God that I was still young when I started Transform. I was, you know, my maybe like 21, 22, when I really was like, no, I gotta get serious. But there was some things that when I really just said, I'm giving it all to God. When I tell you that the peace that I have now, even in bad situations,
Mm.
I have peace. Even when things are just like, I don't know how this is gonna work out. I don't have hair to pull out, but I'm not pulling out my beard or, you know, worrying about it, because it's just peace. Knowing that God is going to take care of his because of my surrender. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing.
Mm, mm, mm. Well, you know, we're almost out of time.
All right.
Yeah, I told you it's the fastest 2 hours you'll spend your life. That's the way it goes. But you know, it was interesting. I preach what I talk about on these shows, right? But I said that, you know, life presents us with some obstacles from time to time. And those obstacles create challenges for us, even when we're in the process of transformation. And so sometimes we find ourselves with our backs against the wall and we don't know exactly what to do.
Yeah.
Well, Stevie Wonder had an answer for that. Stevie Wonder has a song. It's called Have a Talk with God. I don't know if you remember it or not, but listen to these lyrics. There are people who have let the problems of today lead them to conclude that for them, life is not the way. But every problem has an answer. And if yours you cannot find, you should talk it over to him. He'll give you peace of mind. When you feel your life's too hard, just go have a talk with God. Then he says, many of us feel we walk alone without a friend, never communicating with the one who lives within, forgetting all about the one who never ever lets you down. And you can talk to him anytime. He's always around. When you feel your life's too hard, just go have a talk with God. But I like this verse. It says, well, he's the only free psychiatrist that's known throughout the world for solving the problems of all men, women, little boys, and girls. And when you feel your life's too hard, just go have a talk with God. When you when you feel your life's too hard, just go have a talk with God. When your load's too much to bear, just go to God. He cares. When you feel your life's too hard, just go have a talk with God.
Wow.
See, y'all don't know, but you know, in the secular world, I get a whole lot of Christianity in the secular world, man.
Yeah.
I was a DJ, man. I used to learn so much from secular songs, man, because I think people come out of the church, they go in the secular world, and they still hold on to their faith, and they put it in the lyrics, and sometimes you hear it, and if you're paying attention, you can get it, because you can literally get a sermon from any place if you're open for it. And that's where the transformation, that's what you talk about. The transformation begins there, because that's when it starts to grow in you. And then you can see God working everywhere.
Yes.
So Brother Daniels, Pastor, would you just give us some closing words? And I'm gonna come back with some closing thoughts, and then we'll be done for the night.
Yes. Stay on the potter's wheel. Stay on the potter's wheel. Transformation is not easy, but it's necessary. Transformation may not feel good, but it is good. And oftentimes when we are in that place called stuck, we never are able to get the promise. You have to want the promise so much that you're willing to die to yourself and allow God to make you who he's called you to be. Only then can you taste what belongs to you, because you cannot get what belongs to you when you're living a false identity.
Love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I want to be thoroughly used up when I die. For the harder I work, the more I live. I rejoice in life for its own sake. Life is no brief candle to me. It is a sort of splendid torch, which I have got hold of for the moment. And I want to make it burn as brightly as possible before handing it over to future generations. When George Bernard Shaw wrote those words from On Serving, he was a transformed man. His transformation in life revealed his primary objective, providing service to humanity. And I would add, and the glorification of God in the process. Think about the metamorphosis of a caterpillar and the transformation that occurs in a new believer. The caterpillar once was a hungry larva that ate leaves in order to build itself up for its pending transformation. New believers fill themselves with the word of God in preparation for their transformation. They read the Bible with veracity, seeking the truth in a genuine relationship with God. They attend Bible study and spiritual enrichment classes. They read and study. They ask questions. They're willing to die to their old selves so that they can be reborn as new creatures in Christ. Both the caterpillar and the new believer must die to their old selves if they are to be transformed into the beautiful creature they were intended to be by the creator of all things. Look at the similarities and the totality of the transformations. The caterpillar must disintegrate all of its tissues except for those discs that use the protein-rich soup all around them in their cocoon to fuel the rapid cell division required to form the wings, the antenna, the legs, the eyes, the genitals, and all the other features of an adult butterfly or moth. A new believer must be washed of their old sin, sanctified in righteousness, then justified in the name of the Lord Jesus and by the Spirit of our God. This is the evidence of a total spiritual metamorphosis, a genuine spiritual transformation that is as dramatic in a new believer as the transformation of a caterpillar into a butterfly. A totally transformed believer ought to sprout wings of righteousness, exhibit an attitude of gratitude, show a propensity for forgiveness, display a willingness to love, and demonstrate a spirit of generosity. Our total transformation must be so complete that we, like that caterpillar, are no longer recognizable when compared to who we were. I want to thank my guest tonight, Pastor Reverend William Daniels III of the Life Church Center Incorporated. Now, I know folks were blessed tonight just hearing about your transformation and your journey. You personify the spiritual metamorphosis in your life with your family, in your ministry, and in the community. And that's how I met you, because of your desired work in the community. Thank you, my brother, for unashamedly being who you are. And thank you for blessing the Matters of Faith family. And those who've joined you tonight, because I saw some names that I don't recognize that joined you tonight. And I'm very grateful for that. So plan on coming back so we can do this again. Is that okay with you?
That sounds great. I appreciate this opportunity, Reverend Russell. I truly enjoy it.
No, you're more than welcome, man. And we do this every Monday night from 8 to 10. We do it every Monday night. And if you get a chance to, make sure you read the article on Sunday morning in Matters of Faith and the Bronx Chronicle. It's an online newspaper. Do that, because whatever I write about, that's what we're going to be talking about. So you can be just as aware of what we're going to talk about as everybody else. So that's what we do. That's how we do it. And if you happen to be in the neighborhood of a church that I'm preaching at on that Sunday, I'm going to preach about what I wrote about.
Oh.
By the time I get here, I'm saturated. I'm all wet, man. I'm from head to toe. I'm done, man. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. Now, don't forget our advertisers and sponsors, the JLR Company, J. Lauren R. Consulting. That's my company, LLC. For all your church financial needs, call 718-328-8096, 718-328-8096, or visit our website. Matter of fact, visit our website anyway. www.JLORENRUSSELL Consulting, CONSULTING.com. That's J. Lauren Russell Consulting.com. I know it's a long name, but it's still there. So I haven't figured out a way to reduce it yet. So just use the whole thing, www.JLaurenRussellConsulting.com, because it's not about the castle. It's all about the kingdom. Matters of Faith, the book, in my Cash App, $ Matters of Faith. The book is $22.80, which covers shipping and handling. or you can get the e-version of the book at www.smashwords.com/books/view/993177. And if you use the coupon that's there, there is a 50% discount on the book. And there's no shipping and no handling. So the book costs you $10. And I encourage you to do that. Triumph Physical Therapy for all your musculoskeletal needs. Call Triumph before you take that pill or schedule that surgery. 212-234-2900. 212-234-2900. Now listen, they're not just advertising with me. I'm one of their patients. I ruptured my Achilles. I'm back, I'm running, I'm jogging, I'm doing what I need to do. So they're excellent at what they do. And please don't forget, please subscribe, like, and share our Matters of Faith YouTube channel, because when you telephone, text, email, message, or any way you do it, tell a friend to join us next Monday on Matters of Faith. I cannot tell you what the topic is going to be because I only know when the Lord gives it to me. But I can tell you this, you don't want to miss it. You don't want to miss it. Now, we will be live on Matters of Faith and the J. Loren Russell Facebook groups. Then we will drop the episode on our Matters of Faith YouTube channel, just like we're going to do tonight. So this episode tonight will be added to the Matters of Faith YouTube channel. Please subscribe, like, and share it. Now, the Lord bless you. The Lord keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. If no one has told you this today, let me be the first to say, I love you, and there's absolutely nothing that you can do about it. So get used to it. God bless you, and good night to all of you. We do love you. So be well. We'll talk to you soon.